What the hell is that? Welcome to Abandoned Save, where I highlight the good, not legendary games of the past. It's finally time to dive into the latest series in the Little Tail Bronx franchise, Fuga. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I've covered the other two games if you want to check them out, but all you need to know is that it's a franchise created by CyberConnect 2, the developers of some of the biggest anime licensed games ever, and it features dog and cat furries as its characters. And yes, I do know that it's technically the fourth game, but do any of you really know anything about the Japan exclusive mobile game? I didn't think so. The story of Solitaroba was much more mature than Tail Concerto, the first game, and for some reason they decided a game about teen experiments fighting giant death machines to save the entire world wasn't edgy enough. So, let me introduce you to Fuga Melodies of Steel. Fuga is the first game CyberConnect 2 ever self-published, and that obviously means the budget is much smaller than what they would have been able to get from a publisher. Because of that, this story is almost entirely unvoiced and told mostly through pictures with text. What is voiced is only available in the original Japanese, but there are illustrations for a lot of what goes on in the story sections, so it doesn't feel lazy like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, just noticeably low budget. They did the best they could to bring this game to life because they love this series that they created, and it has never sold well, making it difficult to secure a publisher. But don't let any of that deter you from the game. Fuga is one of the most interesting takes on a strategy RPG I've ever seen. This is a game that's nothing like your Fire Emblems or Final Fantasy Tactics, doing something all its own. You take on the role of 6 children who've been guided by a mysterious voice to a hidden tank in a cave after their peaceful rural village was attacked by the Burman soldiers. Look, if Square Enix can call their new world Philadelphia, CC2 can do this. It's a World War II inspired story, and they decided being right on the nose, or snout, was the way to go. The children are from Gasco, which is based on France, and the Burman are invading for unknown reasons and have taken the kid's family and all the other adults from the village. So when the magic voice calls out to them and tells them to run to the cave and get in the fucking tank, they decide they better listen. The game actually starts with the tutorial before explaining any of that, putting you in the tank and getting attacked by Burman soldiers right away. How this actually works is you're put on a route screen that will have occasional forks that allow you to choose a path, whether it be a more dangerous or safe path, and they offer corresponding rewards. You can also land on squares that restore your health or mana, though you can do that with items and heal with skills, so you'll use your current state and how confident you are to determine which path you want to take. Once in combat, each enemy will have a weakness that corresponds to one of the 3 colors, red, yellow, or blue, and those represent the 3 different weapons that each child can man. Their weapons are all predetermined. Malt is a cannon, Hannah is a grenade launcher, and May is a machine gun, for example. She's also 4 years old. Hitting an enemy's weakness with the appropriate weapon doesn't do extra damage, it just delays their turn on the turn order timeline, making speed king here. The stronger the weapon, the more damage it does and the slower it is, but enemies can also have armor, which requires certain skills to reduce that only some characters have, mostly machine gun users. On top of all of that, each of the 3 guns you have equipped on the tank at once are manned by pairs, with the main child deciding what weapon and skills you have access to on their turn, and the support child, gives a unique passive to whoever they're paired with. And if that pair has a bond at least at level 2, they can slowly build up a link attack, which does different things depending on what pair it is. You can also change the entire lineup of children at any point on one of your turns, but you have to keep those changes until each of them has taken a turn once before you can change it again. Every so often in each chapter, you'll have an intermission where you can do things like upgrade the tank, get materials for more upgrades, cook food for buffs, talk to other children to raise their bonds, or take a piss in the training potty. Don't worry about that last one. It's part of the charm. Everyone pretty much starts at level 1 bond, even poster boy Malt and his sister May. Most of these actions cost some AP to do, and you only get 20 AP per intermission, so you have to manage leveling up your tank with increasing your bonds to make yourself stronger overall before you go back into battle. Combat can be quite difficult in this game, and intermissions also act as the only checkpoints in each stage in case you die, and they can be as far as 30 minutes apart. You can quit out as a temporary save whenever you want in case life gets in the way of you and your child soldiers, but there is one more mechanic that can save you in the case of emergency in combat when you don't want to lose all the progress you've made. The Soul Cannon. The Soul Cannon will pretty much save your ass from any situation, but it can only be fired when you're at low health at the cost of a single child crew member's life, which you have to choose yourself. The game's director said it exists so you can feel the satisfaction of protecting the kids by not using it. What kids are alive in a given scene affects the story and the ending, and of course if you decide to throw a 4-year-old little girl into the Soul Cannon to stop yourself from having to redo like 25 minutes of a game, you clearly sacrificed your own soul long ago. I do think it's kind of a shame that there's no real way to use it on a normal playthrough when you're trying to keep everyone alive to the end, though. This gameplay loop lasts for about 15 to 20 hours of game time with 12 chapters to experience. There's a few other mechanics that I didn't mention, but that's the gist of what it looks like. If you just want to experience the story of the game, but you're not too keen on strategy RPG combat, you can play in fast mode, which allows you to skip all battles that don't have a story segment attached to them, and gives you what is essentially an instant win button that you don't have to use if you don't want to, so don't be scared off if you're interested but find the game too hard. Of course, this is a Little Tail Bronx game, so there's gonna be more than just fighting machines and an evil empire involved, though the story is much less complex than Solito Robo's. And speaking of the story, I'm going to go over that next, so don't forget you can use the chapters at any time to skip past this part of the video if you don't want to get spoiled. Let's go back to the beginning of the game real quick. It actually starts with the kids already in the tank to give you the tutorial battles. Eventually you run into Colonel Pretzel, because he's a dog. We're going to be running into Lieutenant Spot and Captain Patches soon enough, don't you worry. The battle against Pretzel is unwinnable, and the voice on the radio directs you to use the Soul Cannon to advance. Picking which child you want to die is already crazy enough, but originally they were going to have a scene where the chosen child sullenly walks by all the others to their appointed death to save their friends. Jesus. At least they had the decency to change it to them just getting teleported into the chamber, but they do guilt you with a scene before it fires. And then the voice tells them all exactly what happened anyway, so even though they didn't draw straws, that trauma is not optional. Line up, children. Today you're going to learn about human sacrifices. This is just the tutorial though, and they refuse to fight afterwards, so the tank is destroyed, but that's okay, because the tank, the Tyrannus, also has the power to turn back time. I can't tell if this is supposed to be canon to the story or not, but you can either retry from the last intermission or go back before then, so if you think you're absolutely fucked, you have a chance to pull yourself out of it. That's what then gives you the tutorial for raising bonds and the first Link event. Every time a pair reaches level 2, 5, and 10, they get a Link event, which is just a small story that really doesn't add too much other than some characterization for each of the kids. After plenty of upgrading, you can get back in there and take on Pretzel for real. The bosses are pretty much the only enemies that have unique mechanics, like Pretzel's tank, which has a tower that will heal him if you don't take it out first, and it comes back after a few turns. The combat has its complexities. I pretty much explained it all before, but I assure you, if even I can beat it, anyone can. I have never beaten a single strategy RPG before this. Not XCOM, not Fire Emblem, not even End War on the Xbox 360. Does anyone remember that game? You had to talk into the Xbox mic to command your troops. It was wild. I order you to attack! Anyway, I'm just trying to say that it can be hard, but it's not that hard. But now, the children have to face the reality of killing someone. Just kidding, here's the results screen. Gold star on that murder, kids! Each child can level up, increasing their stats and learning new skills as they go, but it's very easy to keep all the ones you want to use balanced around the same level. Also, I lied, they are totally gonna have to face reality. But the radio mommy is proud of them, so don't worry about it. Cut to the Berman HQ, and I cannot believe the Hitler clone is not a cat man named Kittler. Missed opportunity, guys. He's apparently trying to resurrect some old god, because this franchise wouldn't be complete without it, and the first chapter ends. In between each chapter, you can visit a village and trade materials with others because there is no money, and talk to a few citizens who will feel bad for the children and give them stuff to help them on their journey. But they don't feel bad enough to, help or something. What are you, crazy? You also meet a child in each of these towns that will give you a chapter of this comic, which is really stupid in my opinion, but the presentation is cool and they can't exactly have collectibles in this game. At the start of the second chapter, we're introduced to the hologram girl. It doesn't say anything yet though, so the children just think they're seeing things. There are a few extra areas of the Tyrannus that you can unlock as you continue as well, like the farm, which unlocks here, which you can use to get certain materials like wool as well as food to make better buffs in the kitchen. You can also find the soul cannon chamber down there. Upgrade the tank. Make a baked potato. Do cardio. Don't let the existential dread set in. Don't let it set in! Talk to your friends. And now back to the war. The next intermission unlocks the dormitory where you can choose some kids to sleep and they get some bonus experience. But only them. Everyone else, back to work. We're not running a charity here. You also get the control room where you can set your lineup, but I found it totally unnecessary since you can do this in any battle without using a turn anyway, and you don't know what you're going to fight ahead of time. While checking out a village and finding no one around, the twins Chick and Hack sneak on board the tank, and they explain that the adults were taken from their village as well and decide to join the crew. That introduces us to the concept of the notebook that will tell you what the kids individually want to do in each intermission, and if you do what they want, it'll improve their mood until the next intermission, which I'll come back to later. First, I just want to mention how cruel it is for these devs to have included a pair of twins. Characters don't die in this game unless you put them in the soul cannon. But who the hell would choose to pick one of a pair of twins to offer up? You'd have to be evil. Back to the mood thing. When it gets high enough, the child will enter hero mode, which does something different for each character, and it's extremely powerful. For Hack, you get triple speed after a normal attack to help you spam them. Hannah doubles the effect of healing skills, which she has plenty of, and so on. You can even stash them in reserve and save it until you want it later, as their mood only resets at an intermission or the end of a chapter. I really wanted to make a joke about keeping the kids in high mood with candy or something, but now I'm realizing how that sounds. Forget it. Now that we're comfortably commanding our child soldiers, this is the perfect time to introduce another mechanic, Ruin Expeditions. You can find ruins on the path sometimes, which reward you with upgrade materials, but first you have to choose 3 children to go spelunking, and then send them out there with nothing but a toy gun that has no bullets. I'm sure they'll find some out there. Don't forget, I said these guys were French, not Russian. I do like this minigame though, and the enemies are even straight out of Solitaire Robo, which is pretty neat. There's one more mechanic to unlock on the Tyrannus as well, which is the laundry. Apparently laundry duty makes whatever pair you pick to do it grow much closer. I want to know how Socks feels to know what he was named after. In a few years he's going to be questioning the fetishes of his parents. Okay, so what the fuck is that all about? According to the devs, that was added in last minute, and it doesn't do anything. Oh hey Nick, I know we're about to ship this game, but real quick I have an idea. What if we made a completely random chance for a training potty to spawn at the top of the tank, and then if you interact with it, you get an image of that kid peeing? Oh, also, let's put those scenes in the menu so you can go back and view them whenever you want. Eventually you'll have a boss fight with these 2 old generals, and when you beat them, the children somehow barter their lives for information. This is one of the places cutscenes would have been amazing, because I'd love to see how they managed to do that. They tell us that their parents were probably taken to the factory near the mining area of Shetland, which is a location from Solitaire Robo as well, so while the game takes place many years before that game, it is cool to see some references to it here and there. But where the hell is the Gasco army during all this? These kids are literally laying their lives on the line. Oh. They have no idea what's going on, but they are actually tracking the kids and fighting on their own. My bad. You'll notice that there are cat people in the Gasco army, but only dogs with the Burmans, which is of course because this game wouldn't be complete without some racism thrown in there as well. It kind of existed in the other games to be fair, but yeah, the Burmans just hate the cat people. In case you weren't aware, the cat people are the only ones that have access to the magic called the no-no in this universe. And no, I would not like to get into the implications of what they are saying with this being based on World War II. The hologram lady manages to come back finally, and all she can say is, "Don't fight." Meanwhile, the voice on the radio continues to encourage the kids to move forward. They seem to be different entities, but that's all we're going to get for now. And if you thought I was kidding about those implications from earlier, here's Sheena, the little cat girl that can use magic and who was running away from the Burman soldiers. I get it, but they really didn't have to be this accurate. Sheena then decides to join up to help out in the fight. I only died 2 times in my playthrough, and this was the first one. I decided to take a dangerous route when I had no business doing it, and I got my ass kicked for it. Going back is painful, but it's like that on purpose to try to tempt you into using the soul cannon even more. But most people aren't going to do that. Unless they're this guy. He was sacrificing kids just to feel something. All cutscenes are easily skippable too, so even if you do go back before some, it's not a big deal. And if you want to see the true ending, you need to make sure everyone survives anyway. Also, this guy, Dr. Blutwurst, is a cat person that is part of the Burman army and pretends to be a dog, and he's in charge of running a laboratory that Sheena escaped from. I think he's more racist against his own people than anyone else is. Going into Shetland, someone fires on the Tyrannus from a beat-up tank, and when he realizes it's just a bunch of kids piloting the Tyrannus, he comes out. This is Jin, and his father was executed at a factory that the Burman took over. He wants our help for revenge, and he's a mechanic that's fascinated by the Tyrannus. He takes over repairs on it in-universe, and it would have been really cool if he gave some kind of buff based around that for upgrading or something, but there's nothing like that in the game. I think each character having some extra advantage outside of combat would have been cool to give you even further reason not to choose them for soul cannon fodder. Sorry Socks, your passive is the worst and your name is stupid, you gotta go. Jin is fucking awesome in combat though, he was one of my favorite characters to use. Once we arrive at the factory, we're greeted by the woman who killed Jin's father and runs the camp, Flam. She's the adoptive daughter of Colonel Pretzel that we killed at the beginning of the game, so both sides lost a father here. She's the boss fight and works pretty much the same as the Pretzel boss fight with a tower that heals her, which is a cool nod to their relationship, but of course she has way more health since this is much further into the game. Flam survives the battle and Jin aims a cannon at her to take her out, but the other children talk him down. What? Why? This is an attempt at the being a better person trope, but that only works if we didn't literally kill untold amounts of soldiers to get here. We even meant to kill her in that fight and she just happened to survive. Also, we didn't just execute old Pretzel out back like old Yeller. He died fighting us because it's fucking war. It doesn't make any sense, but Jin spares her and she is pissed about it. The kids save all the prisoners at the factory, but their families aren't there, so they continue on to the volcanic lands where the prisoners think they might be. While headed there, they accidentally run into this girl Wappa's treehouse. She's really annoying and one of the most childlike characters, who fancies herself the leader of the kids in the nearby village which was taken over by the Burmans, and she wants to take it back. She of course joins for that reason, but once I realized her passive makes characters build up their link attack faster, I started passing her around to everyone to build bonds. I mean, her name is Wappa, so everyone on board is going to get a piece of that wet-ass pussy. I'm making that joke about a child. She is 8 years old. Hey, it's been a while since you've seen my face. I can't play this guitar worth a shit, so just go with the bit, okay? This area has these statues of the upside down wolf. Right, I forgot we were being so literal. They're pretty sick and don't actually do anything. It's just to look cool, which I like. While going through it, you run into this boy hiding in the bushes. He's the one that helps Sheena escape from the factory, a Burman named Brits. And no one trusts him because they're kids and the Burmans are the enemy, so all Burmans must be bad. Sheena comes to his defense and they begrudgingly allow him to join, but Jin especially doesn't trust him. There's a quick cut back to Dr. Blutwurst talking about how he needs more energy to revive the heart of the lost god, and in the intermission, it does something really interesting. A lot of times, games like this will require you to level up or bond with someone for story stuff, but Fuga straight up tells you after getting Brits that he is crucial to getting the true ending, and you need multiple children to bond with him. So guess who's getting the Wappa treatment? Hey! Once we make it to the lab, the doctor greets us himself, and tells us that he was extracting bioenergy from the cat people to create batteries, like the fucking Matrix, which is why they were kidnapping them. The voice on the radio agrees that he's gotta go, and you start the boss fight. When you get hit and are at low health, there's a chance for the lead children you're using to become afraid, which is a status condition that lowers their accuracy for a couple turns. They can also become depressed from this, which locks them out of skills until you give them a nice pep talk in the tank. They leverage this for Bloodwurst's attacks, as he not only does a bunch of damage, but his attack inflicts those effects on you, forcing you to shift your team around to deal with him. I like how that plays out, and at the same time, if you've been using the Soul Cannon liberally,
You monster.
you're going to have a really tough time with bosses like this that want you to swap around. Taking too much damage will injure them, and if you continue to use them, knock them out as well, which removes them from the battle, giving you another lose condition. You can permanently fuck your save like an old school RPG if you go too far and lose too much, which I actually like because the whole point of the game is that it wants you to find a way to get through without using the last resort. The Doctor does not get the same treatment as Flam and gets annihilated, which the game doesn't even take a second to consider before going to rescue the prisoners. Oh yeah, it's like the Matrix, down to the green goop that they're all in. Sheena's family gets rescued, and instead of staying with her family, she heads back off with the other kids. She's here to finish the fight. Who cares that she's 9 years old? Master Chief wouldn't. That was just a pit stop though. We're still heading to the volcanic lands. At this point, Brits takes a moment to look at a pendant with a picture of his family as the other kids ask him about the Burman Empire. He's a really good unit too, which makes it easy to pass him around to level up those bonds. Going through the level, there are occasional moments where that dirty Burman dog gets suspected of various things going wrong in the tank, and instead of defending himself, he just says he doesn't care, which is incredibly annoying. If you don't bother to defend yourself, no one is going to believe you when they already have a bias against you, kid. The hologram girl reappears for the first time in a while at an intermission to tell the children that fighting will spell their doom, but they say they won't give up, and she says the same. This is the most passive ghost I've ever seen. She shows up once every couple hours, asks politely for them not to fight, and then leaves.
Ha! Get haunted!
At the end of the chapter, we see General Hax again saying that the preparations are complete to awaken the lost god, Vannergand. The Japanese really love Norse mythology for boss names. Checking back in on the Gasco army again, they've somehow figured out that the Tyrannus is piloted by children, and they plan to use them to distract the Burman to help their attack. Not help the children. This is more realistic than I thought. The boss of Chapter 9 is Flam, back again to get her vengeance and restore her honor. Obviously she was going to come back. The radio tells the children to believe in themselves and the fight begins. It's very similar to the first time, but now she has a big charge attack that she does, and if you forget to defend against it like I did here, it does a ton of damage to you. Brits tells her to stop after she's defeated, and she says that he's a traitor just like his father. Right when she tries to shoot him, her tank explodes behind her and envelops her in flames. And the kids do not give a shit. They literally say it's a pity since she didn't have to come after them again. They have gone from saying, "Oh my god, we just killed someone," to, "No, whatever, dumb bitch shouldn't have did that," in the span of like a couple days. This game's insane. We've arrived in the volcanic lands now, and the radio voice is getting weird about it. And in his next brilliant act of being suspicious as fuck for no reason, they find a letter written in the Burman language that Brits reads to himself, and then just destroys without a word. Come on, man, at least try not to seem like a spy. In one of the intermissions in this chapter, assuming you were a good boy and did as you were told and developed bonds with Brits, you'll get a scene where he shows the picture of his family to the other kids. For once, he acts like a normal person, and that lets you know that you're on the path for the true ending. Well, assuming you still have everyone left and haven't been shipping kids off to doggy heaven. We finally reach the Burman fortress here, and we're greeted with another big-ass tank like the Tyrannus. Hax himself is piloting it, and calls the Tyrannus the devil from the legend that defied the lost god. And that's when this bitch starts to reveal the truth. The voice on the radio was in both the children's and Hax's ears the whole time. His tank is called the Tarascus, and is the heart of Vannergand, which rests under the city of Parisia. No, not Paris, we're keeping it slightly different here. It turns out the two tanks had to meet for the core of Vannergand to be brought back to life. We were led here by the voice just to reactivate the other tank. Oh, I see, it's some kind of twisted Goku and Vegeta rivalry. The Girl of Light shows up again, and we're thrust into battle. This is a real-ass fight. With the cannon it has constantly threatening a big charge-up move. You have to plan around it and delay with all 3 types of attacks while you attack the main body of the tank. And trust me, you need to make sure you keep track of the countdown on the cannon, because if you don't, this happens. Fuck me, I made one mistake and the whole fight is over. And you have to win this too. It's not one of those lose in advance. So I went back in with a better understanding, and fun fact, every single time you get low enough to use the soul cannon, the radio voice comes on like, oh, you have to use it, it's your only chance. Even though you have plenty of options to heal and move on, and she'll do it every time in a single fight, not just per battle. She's like Megami from JJK, and even the slightest inconvenience, it's, with this child I summon Soul Cannon. No, don't worry about it, man, we can just heal. But Soul Cannon! I've never seen someone so hungry for child sacrifice. When you win, no you didn't. You actually didn't do any damage at all somehow, and the Gasco army finally arrives to do something. Just kidding, they're all fucking gone. Hack says he'll be waiting in Parisia, and Brits is now nowhere to be seen. I have nothing to say about him at this point. He was one of my favorite units though, so that sucks. The children go to rescue the prisoners, and I don't fucking believe that their family is actually here. With how this game is, I 100% thought we were getting a Maria from Gears of War situation. They also find Brits' family if you were friends with him and saw the picture, and wonder where he is. Then the radio comes on. The battle isn't over, kids! Get your asses back in that tank! Even you, the 4-year-old. No, we can't let the fully grown family members take over. They're way too tired from being prisoners. What are you thinking? Child soldiers are much more efficient. The children reluctantly board the tank while their parents beg them to stay. They are all 12 years old or less. Just don't let them. Surely someone else could take it over. Oh, and while we're at it, let's check back in on Brits, who is swearing his allegiance to Hax, because of course he is. I don't know what I expected. Oh, and if you were wondering why Brits' dad was called a traitor, it's because he was a spy sent to Gasco that sided with them because he realized who the good guys were. You get these reports after each chapter, and it becomes pretty obvious that the spy's journal entries are Brits' father pretty shortly after you get him. The children don't trust the radio voice as much now, but they don't really have a choice as it guides them to some caves to get to Parisia. It is way too excited to fight. The Girl of Light shows up again, and this time we can actually ask her who she is. She doesn't know. I don't know what I expected, again. Back to blowing things up. This is the second to last chapter of the game, and the routes have gotten really long at this point, which makes dying really threatening because no one wants to redo 30 minutes of fighting. I started to stick to the safer routes at this point because I was pretty confident in how strong I'd made the tank, and the power of friendship with these kids was out of control. And who is waiting for us at the end of the cave but Brits? The children refuse to fight full power against their friend, so all you're allowed to do is basic attacks for the entire fight. It makes it kinda tough, and I thought maybe you were supposed to just defend until he gave in for a while, but you do actually need to win this fight with all basic attacks, which makes it take much longer than normal. Once you defeat him, he says that the letter he found earlier said that the Burmans had his family, but since we already met and freed them, we know that's not true, and he rejoins the crew. I am 1000% sure everyone watching this could have guessed that was how it was going to go, and then we get the radio voice getting a hard-on again. Of course, it says that the beast must be awakened, because lest we forget, the voice/tank is Goku, and it only wants to fight Vandergand at its strongest, and that is literally all it cares about. And I called it the tank for a reason. The voice has finally revealed itself as Jean, the AI of the Tyrannus. It created the Legend of the Lost God as a means to awaken the Vandergand so it could have its last glorious duel. The children are just pawns to get what it wants. I would say that's pretty fucked up, but they're also just kind of pawns for the player of the game to have, so who am I to judge? Hax takes the Tarrascus to Vandergand and becomes fused with it and creepy as shit, as is the way with this series. And if you played Solo to Robo, you already know that Vandergand is a Titano Machina. There's some information about that in some of the files, but you don't really need to know it to enjoy Fuga, so the main story kind of glosses over that. You won't have a full understanding of what's going on, but you'll be able to follow the plot just fine. Let's now finally, at the end of the game, learn what the Girl of Light is. She's a fragment of the AI Jean, and they fusion Ha back together, becoming older for some reason. The humans are of course long gone from the world. Check out the Solo to Robo video if you want to know more. And we learned that the Vannergand was the greatest Titano Machina, and the Tyrannus was created specifically to defeat it, and did so thanks to the Soul Cannon. It was stashed away because of that power though, and that's when the AI split into two. Don't worry about it, it doesn't have to make sense. Back off to the battle with a god. Holy shit, how are we supposed to fight that thing? Right on up its legs! I so wish this was fully animated because it is awesome. And we're now fighting on the city on its back. Eventually, we literally fall down into the area where the heart is and have our final confrontation with Hax. Unfortunately, this final battle plays out exactly the same as the previous fight with the Tarrascus. It's just a bit harder, and it knocked out the kids pretty much every time the cannon went off. It would be very challenging to do this without having all the characters still, but since I was on the true ending route, I didn't have that problem. If there was a second phase, I was 100% screwed though. You get one more chance to fire the Soul Cannon just for funsies, I guess, but if you believe in everyone that brought you here, you can win with the power of friendship. Apparently the Soul Cannon is going to fire off with its own life force, which it has, I guess. Hax is obliterated, and that blast is so powerful, it breaks the continent apart into multiple floating islands, which is why Gasco doesn't exist in Solo to Robo. It was after this happened. The Gasco army comes to rescue the children in a Burman airship, which would become the main form of transport in this world, which is now renamed as Shepherd as we know it. There's a short blurb about what all the children that survived got up to after returning home, and then after the credits, we get a look at Bion awakening and forming his plan for Solo to Robo. This scene makes absolutely no sense whatsoever if you haven't played that game, so I have no idea why they included it, and then they even reference Red at the end of it. And that is the story of Fuga. It was actually planned as a trilogy, and there are 2 more parts, with the third and final part having come out just a few months ago in 2025, so I'm excited to get to those at some point too. The director of the game said it probably wouldn't surprise anyone, but they were heavily inspired by the Ghibli films Howl's Moving Castle and Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Yeah, it's not surprising at all, the influence is fairly obvious. He's also apparently very into furry stuff, and even announced the third game at Anthrocon 2024, a furry convention. You don't need to be into that kind of thing to enjoy the game though. I had a blast playing this game and managing all the units to keep everyone alive. The story is much weaker than Solo to Robo in my opinion, but I understand why they couldn't be as ambitious as that game was, and I'm just glad to see the series continue. So why did this game do so poorly? Well, first of all, Fuga suffered the same fate as Solar Ash I talked about last time, with delays caused by the pandemic during development. So that didn't help, but they also had a very low budget for this game, like I mentioned before, and that included the marketing. They released a series of YouTube videos introducing the characters in silly scenarios as promotion called Fuga Melodies of Steel. It's not very good, and not as bizarre as the Solo to Robo promotion. At least they didn't air all of these on a single day this time. Other than that, there wasn't much advertising, so I would assume that most people have never even heard of this series, and the target audience can't play what they don't know exists. On top of that, as a series that most have never heard of and the obvious low budget, a $40 asking price might have been a bit much. The game goes on sale regularly now, so you could probably get it for less, but at around 15 to 20 hours, I do think the price is actually reasonable. It just would have been hard to get people to check it out at that cost. It's also a digital-only title, though they did release a physical trilogy on the Switch in Japan, so there are some physical copies floating around, but none you'll likely ever see here in the West. And lastly, I think the fact that people know CyberConnect 2 as the licensed anime game guys probably has caused some unfair difficulty in getting the Little Tail Bronx franchise some serious attention. No one is expecting an original game to come from them, so when it does, they're not paying attention for it. I do 100% think it's worth playing though, as are all of the games in the series. This one is for strategy RPG fans more than anyone, and if you like those at all, you should definitely check it out. There's also a manga called Fuga Melodies of the Battlefield that doesn't follow the story one-to-one, so if you want more from the series, you can check that out as well. I haven't read it, but I don't want to potentially be spoiled for the next 2 games in the series, so I'm not going to risk it. Another thing I wanted to mention is that if you get the deluxe version of the game, it comes with a DLC that you can't buy separately that gives you a dummy on the Tyrannus. This actually gets meshed into the story a little, and it allows you to fire off the soul cannon once per chapter without sacrificing anyone. I think they realized that the mechanic was too cool to just not be allowed to use and added that in. I know there are some mechanics changes in the next 2 games, so I'm wondering if maybe they added a way to use the soul cannon on a normal true ending playthrough in those. It feels like playing through all the first person shooter and never using grenades. You have that option, but you just aren't allowed to touch it. That being said, I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe will enjoy this series for yourself as well. It definitely needs the help, and it deserves it. I'll be back with the next game sometime later, but there'll be a few other things in between, and I hope to see you there.